Hello, hello, welcome to this week's edition of Ask Aziz, the Q&A session where I help you hack your growth and answer your most burning business challenges right now. We are live here in the Accelerate with Aziz community on School. If you have not joined us before or not joined us yet, then please do so now. The link is in the bio. We just how's this working now? Cancel. Okay. Sorry, some technical issues. How's it going? Good to see you guys here. Thank you for joining. As I was saying, we're live today in the Accelerate with Aziz community. For those of you not joining us from inside the community, please go to the link in bio and join us now. There's a ton of value inside, lots of stuff happening this week. I'm going to start off, as always, with a couple of questions that we received this week from members and go through how we help them deal with those challenges in their business. And then we'll end off with some updates from the group and the community that's been very exciting. And so let's kick it off. So one of the questions that I received this week was pretty interesting, and it was around succession planning. And, you know, like I've said before, and if you've watched the trainings, I go into this quite in depth, is that one of the things we kind of never plan for is our exit plan, right? We get into business because we want financial independence, we want financial freedom, we want time freedom. But then what happens is we put on these golden handcuffs. We essentially create high-paying jobs for ourselves, and we are the first one in the morning and the last one out at night, and that's not scalable. And you can't exit the business like that. And because we don't want to give away control and we want to fix everything ourselves and be the solution to every problem in our business, because we hire staff that are usually not the most qualified, not the most competent, and are essentially just glorified order takers and instruction takers, we end up doing everything ourselves. And so this leads us to the dilemma of, but now what if I want to get out, right? So the first thing is that you need to realize before you can get out of your business, you need to build a scalable business. And what that means is you need to create a business that can operate effectively when you disappear for 90 days, right? You can literally not be there for 90 days and nothing will happen. Nothing will change. Everything will go according to plan because you have the team, you have the systems, and you have the technology to be able to run the business without you, right? So I know for some of you, and as business owners normally are, we are control freaks. And I know that can be very challenging, but the reality is you need to let go and you need to make peace with the fact that the people who you give this responsibility to, their 100% is only going to be 60, 70% as good as your 100%, right? But you accept that, knowing and understanding and being at peace with the fact that you are buying back your time, right? So once you've created a scalable business, meaning you are able to create predictable revenue without your physical involvement on autopilot, right? You've got the people and the systems and the procedures in place to make it work without you for at least 90 days. Then you are in a position where potentially you can put in place a succession plan, and that's an exit plan for yourself, right? So now your exit plan could be passing the business down to, if it's a family business, someone else in the family. If it's not a family business and it's just you, potentially looking at something like a management buyout, right? Where your management team, depending on the size of your business, that could be anything from a general manager to your C-suite, meaning your CFO, your CEO, your COO. And if you don't have that team now, that's completely fine. But understanding that you are going to need to promote people up from the ranks or bring people in from outside who can operate in those roles, because it is only with those key players, those key decision makers, that you are able to start extracting yourself from the business. So either you're grooming someone from internally, which is what I recommend because they have a deep understanding of the business already. Alternatively, you can bring someone in from the outside. Having said that, that usually has a big price tag attached to it and can be challenging if you choose the wrong person. It can also be very costly. And this is something I experienced firsthand, where we made a wrong hire and burnt a bunch of cash doing it. And it then took us 18 months to recover and get people and basically recover from the damage that was done during that mishire, shall we say, all right? So it can be a costly exercise. And if you do decide to go that route, if you're under the kind of 10 million mark, then it's probably prudent. You probably can't afford the right person to pay that person. And so it's going to kill your cash flow, right? From an operating point of view. And so what I would recommend is identifying someone that really resonates with the vision and the mission of the business and getting in someone on an equity basis, right? So giving them a cut of the pie and in return, getting them to, bring and leverage their skill sets into the business. But the first port of call, like if it was me and I was acquiring a business, the first place that I would go and look is into the existing management team or into the senior staff members and seeing who can be upskilled from a management perspective into that role, who can run the day-to-day of the business, right? So that's number two. So first, putting in place the systems of scale. The second thing is identifying the leadership that will be able to guide the ship in your absence, right? And then the third thing is creating your exit plan and deciding what you want that exit plan to look like, right? So do you want to exit completely? Do you want to go invest in another business? Do you want to take some cash off the table and do a partial exit? Do you want to do a seller financing where you bring on board a new operator and in return, instead of, going the capital gains route and, paying a bunch of tax on your money, although this is not tax advice, go and speak to your financial advisor. More efficient way to do it would be to, create some kind of milestone exit for yourself where on certain milestones, you get paid, certain dividends, which could be more beneficial to you. But again, speak to your tax person, all right? But these are the options available to you. So succession planning is really something you need to think about way in advance. It's very similar to, if you're a tech company and you're out raising capital, you've got to be building those relationships with investors 18, 24 months, 3 years before you actually need to speak to them and raise capital from them. In the same way, when you exit, you're gonna need to start having those conversations with investors, competitors, corporate acquirers, and management teams way in advance, right? So that you can kind of lay the groundwork, build a rapport, make sure the right stopgaps are in place to make sure that you don't make a mistake and you have a seamless exit, right? So it's really important that you plan this in advance. In fact, so I was speaking to Sharon Srivatsa in the week, and so his claim to fame, he's been one of my mentors now for a long time, and his kind of claim to fame was that, he did a $5 billion exit on his real estate company. And during that 5 years, for the last 3 years, he went to market every single year with the intent to sell. Not because he was actually going to exit at that point, but he wanted to see what the demand was in the marketplace. He wanted to do price exploration to understand what he could get for the business and come to a valuation that delivered him the right premium for him to say, yes, let's do it. And so that exploration is an exercise, right? It's not a calculation. And so that needs to be put in place way in advance so you can do. So for instance, you took that business from, I think he 10x'd it, if I'm not mistaken. I think they were doing 500 million when he got involved, and he exited at 5 billion. So that was a 10x exit, right? So when you're planning exits like that, you need to be going to market in advance. So that's succession planning. But before you get there, and I cannot stress this enough, put in place the systems and start identifying who are the right people internally to help you get this done. The second thing that came up during my conversations this week was this idea of winning, right? And so there's this thing called the winner effect, and it's actually something practiced by Olympians, right? And so what happens is every time you win and you celebrate that win, right? Your brain becomes just a little bit smarter. And so when that happens, your brain seeks to find more opportunities to create that same effect. And so what happens is winning actually becomes habit as your brain seeks out more opportunities to win. And so when people say winners win more, it's actually because when you win and you celebrate the win, the chemical exchange that happens in your brain, it actually starts to modify the way that your brain works. And it starts to identify more and more opportunities for you creating that wins for yourself. And so what I was explaining to someone in the week is that all you really need is that next win to begin winning more. Because once you win, you will win more. Right? It's the same with making offers. The more offers you make, the more money you'll make. The more you win, the more you win. Right? So that was a really, I think, interesting concept to kind of take in this week. And also, you know, because a lot of us here are high performers, it can be challenging to sometimes celebrate the wins because we're always looking to move on to the next thing. But it's actually that celebration of the win that conditions us to win more. And so even if it's the small things, even if it's accomplishing your to-do list or taking that tiny step towards your big dream, it is critical that you celebrate the wins, because when you win more. Then another thing that came up this week, and I actually shared this on some of the platforms as well, was this idea of product naming. And this was the conversation, you know, that I shared with Sharon, was we were talking about how product naming is a critical factor in terms of differentiating yourself in the marketplace, right? And so, for instance, if you are a consultant and you call yourself a consultant, you are just a me too. You are just like everybody else. If you sell bath bombs and you call yourself the bath bomb company, there is no differentiation. Nobody cares. But once you name something, whether it's a system, whether it's a process, whether it's a program that you deliver or a service that you offer, when you name it, you create an identity for it. And by its very nature, identity is unique, right? There is only one Aziz Gul, right? Because no one has had the life experience, the challenges, the wins, the context that I've created through my lifetime. And so literally that puts me in a category of one. And so when you are able to name the things that you do and the services that you offer and the products that you create, you immediately create differentiation in the market and make yourself a category of one. And the most powerful part about that is it delinks you from the pricing in the marketplace, right? Because a consultant and Aziz Gul cannot be priced the same way because they are not apples and apples. They are apples and oranges. And the minute you do that, you know, you create a curiosity that says, okay, but what can Aziz offer that's different? Because from what he's saying, it looks so much different than what everybody else is saying. So there must be more value in what he provides. And, you know, a great example of this, just to bring it home, is, for instance, like our community, Accelerate with Aziz. I could have just called it, you know, the free growth community, you know, but then it would have been like everybody else. So instead, we name it and we say, you know, but it's the Accelerate with Aziz community. Then we launched a premium offer this week. And then, we called that Achieve with Aziz. So it's not just the same thing. It's something different, something unique. It has an identity, right? It provides a particular value that you can get nowhere else because it's delivered by an individual who is unique in the experience and what they've accomplished and the support that they can provide you. Right? So this is the power of naming things in your business, whether it's your internal processes, whether it's your client packages, whether it's the services that you're providing in the marketplace. Always look for ways to create something unique and create a narrative, because storytelling is a narrative is a very powerful way, to resonate in the marketplace. So create stories around what you do. And then the other thing that we did this week, which was quite interesting, was we were, as I said in the previous sessions, we're always looking at different ways to drive traffic, to bring leads into our business, to fill our pipeline, and we're always experimenting with new ways. And so one of the ways that we were playing around with this week was automated TikTok ads, which was quite an interesting experience. It gets a ton of reach and it's really cost effective. However, from a conversion point of view, it's not that great. I think you really have to decide what you kind of want out of it going into it, like in terms of your intent and your objective. And if you're looking to create brand awareness, if you're looking to maximize your reach, it's a great platform. We're going to keep playing with it. We're going to kind of pull back on the automation a bit, and do some kind of manual targeting, because I think that would be really effective in identifying the right, or getting our message in front of the right people. And so why I'm sharing this process with you is that two things. So the first is that your decision making should always be data driven, right? So you can have the best of ideas, but there's no point in creating a product or solution that has no problem, that has no demand. And so once you create that offer, that idea, the first thing you need to do before you completely create it is to go back to the marketplace and verify the demand, right? So, you can do that on a one-to-one basis, reaching out to your network, DMing them, having conversations, jumping on a call and validating the offer that way. And you can also do it, if you want to do it in a very scalable way and very fast, you can also do it using things like social media and advertising, right? So advertising is one of the ways that we use to verify our offers. And so, we'll usually take a certain amount of spend. So let's call it $100, and we'll put it behind an ad and we'll run it for a short span of time. So let's take $100 in 24 hours and we'll see what the resonance is in the market, right? And we then decide based on our data whether or not that is the solution that we need to pursue, right? Because we want to know that the demand is there. We want to know that the problem is there. The problem is deep and the problem is urgent before we create a solution, right? Because there's tons of entrepreneurs, there's tons of businesses that create solutions which have no problems. And that's why, like, in the tech space, they talk about product market fit, right? And so many companies, even with all the backing and the capital of their venture capitalist investors, cannot find product market fit because they created a solution which doesn't have a problem. And so the first thing you need to do is verify that there is actually demand. And advertising is one of the ways that you do it, something we're playing with. If you want to start maximizing your reach and scaling not only your pipeline, but your sales, then it's something that you need to be exploring. And one of the questions that I get a lot is, oh, but my audience isn't on blank. My audience isn't on TikTok. My audience isn't on Facebook. My audience isn't on Google. But as I said in last week's session, Facebook alone, 3 billion people, that's like half the world's population. So I would challenge you and say that maybe there's a limiting belief holding you back from getting the results that you want. And you can't say they aren't there until you've looked at the data, and you can't get the data unless you've run the ad. Right? So if you can tell me I've run the ad on the platform, there's no conversion, this is who I'm targeting, this is who I'm getting, that's a different conversation. all right? But I would challenge you to first do the exercise and get the data and then make decisions based on the data. Because essentially entrepreneurship is about failing forward. It's about trying and testing different things and failing and failing and failing forward, moving forward, learning more until you find the thing that works. And once you find the thing that works, you stop doing all the things that don't work and you do more of the thing that works. Right? So that was that. And yeah, I mean, I'd like to open up the floor. If any of you have any questions, it would be great to get some insight from you guys, what you guys have been up to this week, what your guys' current challenges are in your businesses, what I can provide support and help to you on, because that's why we're here, right? We're here to engage. It's a question and answer session. So I just like to kind of get the ball rolling by sharing some wins from the week and some of the questions that, you know, from some of the business owners I've had conversations with over the past week. But I'm really here for you guys. So you guys need to share with me what you're going through and we can then help accordingly. Cool. So while those questions are coming through, I want to talk a little bit about product development, right? And the offers that you guys are creating in the marketplace. And I think that, you know, someone asked me this question today. They said, how do you make sure that, you know, you are managing the objections effectively for clients when you are presenting your offer? What if they tell you, I need to think about it, right? And the reality is that I need to think about it isn't a real objection. And normally the easiest way to handle this objection is to approach the situation by saying, that's fine. And instead of closing for the sale, closing for the next meeting. So saying, over the next day or two, how long would you need to think about whatever it is you need to think about for the offer, right? And once you do that and they believe that you're getting off the call, they essentially psychologically disarm themselves. And then once they're giving you that information, you can then circle back and say, but before you go, you know, just so I can prepare for any questions you have when we speak again, what are some of the concerns that you need to think about? And so at this point, you can really get them to open up and be vulnerable with you and expose their reservations, their pain points, you know, the kind of urgency or gap that you haven't created in the sales process. And then you're able to address that in a way that makes the sale much more likely. Okay, so we have another question here. What would be the first 3 actions to start in your business with a partner? Okay, so there's a couple of questions coming through. We'll start here. So business partners are a tough one. So I've done business alone and I've done business with partners. Doing business with partners, when it's going right, it's great, right? But at some point during the relationship, you end up wanting different things. And this usually causes initially animosity and eventually comes to a point where, similar to a marriage, you know, things don't work out and you have to break up. And then things get kind of messy. And so I think it's really important in terms of the actions to start with, that you clarify on paper, what is the nature of the relationship? Secondly, what are the responsibilities of both partners? Like, what does each partner bring to the table? What are they expected to do in terms of like a service level agreement in that relationship? And what is the return that they get out for that input, right? So make that very clear upfront, and you want to have it in black and white, right? Like you want to, if you are doing an equity split, you want it in the shareholders agreement, what each party's roles and responsibilities are, what they're there to do, and what they get out. So that for me is the main thing. The second thing is to see if it's that you that is bringing in a partner into your business, right? It's not something you're starting together. I think the second most important thing is a culture fit. Right. So, if you're just starting out in business, one of the most important things that you need to do is create your vision, your mission, and your core values. This is the foundation on which your business is built. And so, whoever's joining you, whether it is a business partner or whether it is a customer services person or whether it's a cleaner, they need to resonate with your core values, because you can only be an effective leader to those that buy into your vision and your mission. Right? Because if they don't buy into it, if they're just there to collect a paycheck, and this is something we also spoke about last week, right? They can essentially become bad apples. And what these bad apples do is that they begin to ruin the culture of the entire organization. And this has a direct effect, a negative effect on the performance of the business. And so, oftentimes, sometimes as leaders, because it's our business and it's our babies, we wear our hearts on our sleeves. And, especially with people that have been with us for a long time, we tend to be over nice and over caring and oversensitive, and we tend to keep bad people on for too long. And so in your business, there's really 4 types of people, right? There's your A players, your B players, your C players, and your D players. Now, your D players are your people who are bad culture fit and bad performance. Those are the people you must get rid of immediately. They will ruin your culture and ruin your performance. C players tend to be high performers, but are bad culture fit. And so these types of people you need to manage with consequences, right? Your B players are great culture fits, but unfortunately are not that great at their performance. And so you need to actively be coaching and mentoring them and providing them with training to upskill them to become A players. And obviously your A players are those that are great culture fit and great performance. And so you want to essentially build a team of A players and make sure that you have the right people in the right seats. Right. So the first thing, shareholders agreement. The second thing, make sure they're a good culture fit. And the third thing is that it is super important that they have a different skill set from you. Right. You cannot have 2 business partners that are good at the same things, because then there is no benefit to the business partner. Right. Because you could essentially do everything yourself. And so they need to have complementary opposite skill sets from you. So for instance, if you are a very visionary person, you like big picture thinking, 10,000-foot view, you a creator that doesn't like structure or deadlines or systems or processes, you're a visionary. Then you need an integrator, right? A person that's good at taking that vision and translating that into a workable, executable action plan that the rest of the team can follow using systems and processes to achieve your vision. And vice versa. If you identify yourself as an integrator, more of a systems details person, then you need to find someone who is a complementary visionary, who can essentially push you beyond the edges of your imagination and what's possible for you and for the business. All right. So those are the 3 actions that I would take: skill set, shareholders agreement, and culture fit. And then in terms of working with family members, I think there's some people in the call that can, give a lot of insight on that. But essentially, from my personal experiences, as someone who's been involved in different family businesses, I think it's always a challenge. I think there's always personal politics that get involved, and it can be a very tense and friction-filled environment. And that's kind of when you're on the same level, right? So I'm talking about, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, parents. And I think when it's circling back to succession planning, when it's looking to, give it over to your own kids, it becomes a question of, do they want the same things that you want, right? Do they want to take over this business? Because I think in the States, we have a big problem at the moment with, what we call the great retirement, right? Where you have all these boomers that are now looking to exit their businesses, looking to retire, looking to close their businesses. And the challenge is they have no succession plan, because their children are all essentially millennials who want to go out and find their purpose, and do something meaningful and, create some kind of unique impact on the world that doesn't involve, owning a hardware store or, taking over the mom and pop. And so that becomes the challenge with family. And so I think when it comes to family, sometimes we don't have a choice. But then I think, as I've recommended to others before, it becomes super important to, again, in terms of that shareholder agreement, kind of outline what the roles and responsibilities of each person is, and make sure that each one is delivering from their unique value and their skill set to the business in the way that they should. Because otherwise, when people are picking up the slack for other people in the business, there can be resentments that are created and unnecessary tensions. And, the lines begin to blur between home life and business life. And you take certain things home with you and you bring certain things to work with you. And so it's really important to create those Chinese walls, I think, in the business, which make it more helpful. But again, if the skill sets are complementary and you get on well together, it's not insurmountable. I think it depends how good of a people manager you are. And so I think it's really important from a leadership perspective that you identify what your strengths and your weaknesses are. And not only do you hone in on your strengths, but you develop your weaknesses, right? And your core responsibility as a leader is to essentially be a great coach, right? Because you are there to get out of people what others cannot, right? So when someone, John works for company A, and he's like a 6 out of 10 in terms of his performance. When he comes in and he works for you, he becomes a 7 or 8 out of 10, right? Because you're able to mentor, coach, and train him or her to the point where they create an edge for you in the marketplace, right? And essentially, success is team built. And so you have to be willing to put in the work to mentor your staff. And it can be frustrating at times. I was speaking to a client in the week, and they were saying, I've done all of this work. I've created all these systems and procedures. I've even created the scripts and the standard operating procedures in terms of what they need to do to get the job done. And yet they are still not getting the job done. And it's like I've constantly got to handle them and follow up with them and make sure that they're doing the work. And unfortunately, when you're early on in your business, that's par for the course, right? And it's only when you grow bigger and you increase revenue and you maximize your margins through, big ticket pricing, that you're able to afford better people, more accountable people that are more autonomous. And so the goal is, as you grow, to continue to reinvest back into the business and the quality of the business that you're creating, so that you can step away from the business, so that you can create succession, so that you can exit the business. All right. So I hope that answered that question. And let's go and see now if there are any other questions. Let me go have a look in the chat. Okay. So here's another one. So someone was asking in the week, the intention for them is over the next 6 months to essentially double the client list. And so I said, that's a great goal, but talk me through the math. And so we dived a bit deeper into the math. And so they were saying, for instance, right now they have just over 30 clients. And so they'd like to get to 60 in the next 6 months. And so I said, okay, great. If you need to get to 60 in the next 6 months, that means you roughly need to, or in the next 5 months, actually, because we're at the end of June now. So that means you've got to basically be converting 1 client a week. And so for their particular business, they operate on a demo model, so demo to convert. And so I said, so the next thing you need to then think about is how many demos do you need to book in order to create 1 sale a week? And so once you figure out what that number is, what that conversion is, then all you then need to do is focus on booking demos and then let the math take care of the results. And I think that's oftentimes something that we overlook in business. Like we always trying to be as busy as possible and, kind of doing a million things. But when we actually just identify what is that one goal that we want to hit right now, and we reverse engineer that goal through basic math into the one lever that A, we can control, and B, we can, increase or decrease at will. We then just need to focus on that lever. And so in this case, that lever is just booking demos, right? And then it actually makes business so much more simple. And I think when we have that kind of clarity in terms of what actions we need to be taking to not only create but control our results, it gives us a certain sense of purpose and impact that is unmatched by the kind of spray and pray approach of busyness. And so I think one of the things, I want you guys to take away is from tonight's session or today's session is really to go away and think about what is that magic number for you for the rest of this year, knowing that there's only 2 quarters left. And just choose one number, right? So one of our mentors used to say mind, right? The most important number in your department, right? What is your mind for the next 6 months or 5 months? And then reverse engineering that into one action you can take today and take every day for the next 6 months in order to create that result. And I think that will give you a lot of clarity, it'll give you a lot of purpose, and it'll give you a lot of control over what needs to happen, when it needs to happen, and how it needs to happen. And so I think where a lot of us also fail is consistency. And so you need to create a cadence of consistency and hold yourself accountable for that consistency, because it is only through consistency that we really create lasting results. Like if you look at someone like Warren Buffett, and I've spoken about this before, right? It's essentially the one trick pony effect, right? So very successful people like Warren Buffett, who is one of the richest men in the world, is that he identified one skill that he was amazing at. And he did that skill over and over and over again for the last 78 years. And so those are your 2 levers, right? It's mastery and time. And if you can create consistency between the 2 of those, you will win. Undoubtedly. Right. And I think the toughest part about that, and it's something I experience very often, and I speak to my coaches about, is this idea of motivation and discipline. Right. And so often it's we want to do things when we feel motivated to do them. And that's actually crap. Right. Because if you look at a day, a week, a month, what percentage of the time are you actually motivated to do what you need to do? And so rather than doing and acting when you're motivated, create the discipline of doing, right? Because it doesn't matter how you feel, it must be done. Yeah. Cool. So I think that's all of the questions that we have time for today. And if there's anything else, you can pop it in the chat. If we don't get to it in this session, I'll get to it on the community chat. And like I said last time, if you haven't joined yet, please join us inside the Accelerate with Aziz community, and get benefit of all the value that we are dropping there. Cool. Anyone else? Awesome. Good stuff. So I think we'll leave it there for this week, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. Like I said, Growth Hack Q&A here with me, Aziz Gul, inside the Accelerate with Aziz community, every Thursday, answering your most burning challenges in your business right now. And thank you to all of you who have joined us today, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Ciao for now. Cool.
Aziz.